if you're going to be working with teams, you're going to be working with individuals, and you're going to be working with individuals whether you're working on product development teams, program teams, portfolio teams, leadership teams, or even executive teams. The C-suite teams are everywhere in the organization, and people need to be able to work together. And so I'm not going to go deep into personalities here, but I'm going to touch on some very key things that I think are extremely important for understanding on how to make the teams work and how to help people work together so that they don't throttle each other. And especially these days when we're working with cross-functional teams, it's extremely important to understand the impact that personalities have on what you're trying to achieve. The leadership takeaways for this video on personalities, we're going to look at the following areas and examples. There's a whole other area of study. We're not going to go into it here too much. I'm just going to share my observations from the last 37 years in my work life. And there are a couple of groups. There's those that believe that genetics controls everything, or nature. Others believe that your environment shapes who you are, and that would be the group that believes in nurture. But I've observed that there are people that overcome their genetics and they overcome their environment, and they do that by exercising choice to choose to overcome what they've been dealt in life, whether it's something with genetics that went wrong or that they grew up in a horrible environment where they were poor and didn't have food or whatever. And so I have that view of an individual, that it's not just genetics or environment, it's both and plus choice. Also, you need to use, again, simple frameworks in order to be able to read people. And I take a modified form of Wilson learning. The first four are the original boxes. It's a 4-box for Wilson learning. And you have people who are analytical, people who are drivers, people who are expressive, and people who are amiables. Now, there is a 5th box that I added in the middle that touches all 4 boxes. And these days, we would probably define it as a collaborator. In World War II, that was not a good phrase, but today it works because a collaborator is able to work with the other 4 areas and mirror them in such a way that that person believes that they're the same. So it's almost like being a chameleon. That's what I originally called it back in the 80s. And then in the last section, or in the last slide in this section, I give you an outline, a quick outline of the people with which I enjoy working. If you've been around for any amount of time, if you happen to be married and have kids or grandkids, you're going to have a certain, probably, view of the world. Anyone that has held a newborn baby in their arms, and it's somehow related to the person that's holding that baby. And if you compare that little one to, let's say, you have another baby a few years later, and you're holding that one in your arms, and then maybe a few years after that you have a third one. From day one, I can guarantee you that there is a portion of that little person that is already hardwired in. People will be able to identify very quickly the personality of that baby as it's developing and as it's growing. And so there's been this long discussion about, is it genetic, is it environment? Every one of us is a victim of our environment. And when you look at genetic arguments for people's behavior or environmental arguments for people's behavior, I've come to the conclusion after multiple decades of working with people that it's not an either or, it's a both and. And so the amount of genetics, that circle might be very small, it might be very big, the environment part might be big or it might be very small. They both have an impact on the individual. Can give you an example. I don't know how many of you have taken personality tests. There's a ton of studies out there that basically savagely destroy personality tests as not much better than voodoo when trying to actually predict what a person's like. If you've been around as long as I have, you've probably figured out how you can bypass those. You can answer the questions in such a way you can defeat the test. I've seen it done over and over again. But I can give you an example of where we did a personality test, and this is going back about 35 years in time. We're working with a company and we're hiring a salesperson. We did the personality profile on him, and according to his personality profile, this guy should have been able to talk a hungry dog off a meat wagon, and the dog would have thought I got a great deal. And for the first 6 months, it was true. He was knocking sales out of the park, and it was a really great win-win when the company hired this salesperson. Suddenly, his sales totally tanked. I mean, we're just talking, it was like a 180-degree complete turnaround and flop. And the poor guy was struggling, and so we did the test on him again. We decided, okay, well, let's do the personality profile on him, and this is like half a year later. And the testing company came back and said, what on earth happened? How can this be the same person? And so the testing company said, hey, find out what's going on in the background. And something life-changing has happened with this guy for his personality to completely flip the way that it did. Turned out he was going through an extremely nasty, bitter divorce. Incredibly bitter. They were fighting over everything. The house, the kids, the truck, the dog. It sounded like a very bad country western song in the end. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. That somebody could make that big of a switch in their personality. But the testing company was correct. The person did go through a traumatic divorce, and it ended up impacting his ability to perform his role in the company. Just absolutely devastated him. So the president of the company had a chat with this salesperson, and they agreed that, yeah, it's probably best to part ways as friends while it's still possible, because he was to the point where he's just like going, I can't do this job anymore. And so in the end, he became an entrepreneur, started a construction business, and became incredibly successful in the construction industry, using his sales ability, but also hands-on physical labor, probably as a form of therapy, to get over the trauma of having gone through such an incredibly nasty divorce. Now, I believe that there's a third element to personality that overrides environment, that overrides genetics, and I would call it choice, or I might even go as far as to call it free will. I know that there's a lot of people that insist that we don't have free will. I'm not going to get into a theological debate over that or about that, but I'm going to challenge you with this. I'm sure many of you have seen the inspirational speaker, of the guy with no arms and no legs, who does inspirational speeches all over the world. He does amazing things. He swims, he mountain climbs, he does all the things that most people never do. He's just an amazing example of a person whose genetics were against him, whose environment was against him physically, and yet through choice and sheer will, just having a will that was unbelievable, he overcame both. And so when people talk about, genetics or environment, I almost start to yawn these days, because I know ultimately everybody has a choice. Everybody can choose to overcome either their environment or their genetics or both. For some people, that band is very thin. For others, it's much bigger. And those are the people that actually achieve remarkable things. As I mentioned earlier about the personality test, I prefer simple models, and I love 4 boxes, as you've probably seen through all of the other materials that I've used and the way I explain things. Here is Wilson Learning, and they use analytical, driver, expressive, and amiable. Analyticals are your mathematicians, scientists, engineers, things like that. Your drivers are going to be your entrepreneurs, business leaders, executives, things like that. Expressives are going to be your artists, your musicians, your poets, people who love to express themselves. And then amiables are your diplomats that can't we all just be friends? Now, when I took the test 35 years ago or more, they took the test and they tested me with 4 different tests because they thought I was cheating. And in the end, they figured out, oh, he's not cheating. Because what happens is when you take Wilson Learning, you get 1 dot in each of those 4 boxes, and then they draw a shape. And everybody, you might be more diamond shaped or pointing one direction. It almost becomes like a pointer, and where it points, like if your analytical dot was up in the upper left corner and your driver, expressive, and amiable were more in the middle, well then the shape would be pointing into the analytical corner, and it becomes a pointer telling what's the person's dominant trait. Okay? When they tested me, I came out a perfect square. And it happened 4 times, and they gave me their best tests and their best people, and they're like, oh. And originally, they used the label chameleon because they said, man, this guy's just going to blend into whatever environment that he's in. Because later they switched it, but well, I don't know if Wilson Learning never did it, but I know that the Agilists and things like that have picked up on the idea of this, and they call it collaborator. Now, in World War II, you wouldn't have wanted to use the word collaborator because that was a bad thing. But here's what a collaborator is. They basically mirror whoever they're working with. So if a collaborator is working with an engineer, the engineer is going to go, oh, he's one of us. He speaks our language. If the collaborator is working with an executive, they're going to go, oh, he's one of us. He speaks our language. If a collaborator is working with an expressive, the expressive is going, man, this guy's really inspirational, and this guy, he really knows how to express himself. Well, they're going to go, oh, he's one of us. And then the amiables, they love collaborators because collaborators are just like an amiable in the sense that they're like a diplomat, and they want everyone to get along. They want everybody to be friends. But a collaborator has the unique ability of mirroring all 4 boxes. So if you can mirror the other people and make them believe that you are one of them, that's an incredibly powerful tool in dealing with other people. Your ultimate project managers, your ultimate scrum masters, your ultimate product owners, your ultimate executives are going to come from that box. Well, maybe not executives. They might be up in the upper right-hand corner. Drivers, lead, follow, get out of my way. or I'll run you over type of individuals. But true executives that really know how to collaborate, they are becoming the norm. They are the ones that are succeeding. They are the ones that are building sustainable organizations. And so being able to look at these and quickly be able to understand how to deal with people. Uh, for example, for conflict management with an analytical, do you know how you know an analytical is upset with you? They see you in the hall, you're walking towards them, and they actually spin around and walk away. They avoid you. That's typical analytical way of dealing with conflict. The driver, they're going to pontificate. The expressive, they're going to explode on you. And the amiable, they're going to internalize it all and still try to, can't we all be friends? And they'll try to negotiate a settlement. So your backup style, depending on which one of these boxes you are in, it can end up being either a Z or a backward Z or a N or an upside down N, depending on which box you're starting in. But for example, like an analytical, first they'll avoid you. Second, they'll probably pontificate to you and tell you this is how it is, this is how the world is. Their next step would to be like an amiable and just say, okay, can we work something out? But in the end, they're going to rip open your throat, reach down in, grab your heart, pull it out, and show it to you before you die. So that's the backup. It's a Z pattern that the analyticals are going to have. And so you need to be able to look at each of these personalities, understand how they work. You can go out on the net, look up Wilson Learning. I'm sure the way that I apply it probably isn't exactly as Wilson Learning because I've been using this now for the better part of 35, 40 years. It was shown to me on a napkin in a restaurant, a fast food restaurant back in the States, back in like 1983 or 1985, somewhere around there. And it was so good, I've used it ever since. And so when you get into these other more complicated models, humans aren't wired that way. And if you overcomplicate it, for the life of me, I can never remember the 16 different boxes that the Minnesota multi-phase personal inventory, whatever it's called. I can never remember what those 16 differentiations are, let alone what the colors are. So, and these colors don't have any meaning here. It's just a way to differentiate each of the different personality types. It's important to try the best that you can to work with people that you like to work with. I love working with people who dream big, who have a real vision, who have a big vision, who are inspirational, who get me excited about coming into work. I love that. I also like working with people who get things done. Because, yeah, it's good to have a great vision, it's great to dream big, but we still need to get things done. And somewhere in the intersection of these three, there's the third area of having fun. If you look at the employee engagement, disengagement survey, the different pictures that we've included in here, I can guarantee you most people, the have fun circle is so small that it's unbelievable. So you have a choice. You can either make work the drudgery that it is, or you can choose to overcome the work circumstances and have fun anyways. Now, does that mean that your team will always succeed or that you'll succeed? No, but at least you'll have had fun, hopefully, in the process. And so if you get a combination of individuals that also think the same way, which is the sweet spot in this Venn diagram, I enjoy people who know how to dream big, who know how to have fun, who also know how to get things done. When you find teams like that, and you're able to be part of a team like that, make sure that you're also a person who dreams big, that you're a person who knows how to have fun, and most importantly, you're a person who knows how to get things done. Okay? And for me, this is the kind of people I enjoy working with. And this all also is another slight nuance to the personality discussions that we've been having that all relate back to the 4R model. And so the 4R model is basically one of the keys for being able to dream big, getting things done, and having fun. So in this section, we looked at nurture nature and overcoming both, how to overcome your environment or your genetics, and you do that through choice. We looked at how to use this Wilson learning model that was shown to me over 25 years ago at lunch on a napkin, and I've used it ever since. It's really easy to remember and easy to apply. And then I shared the type of people that I enjoy working with. Now, here's the application, because this is going to really, it goes to, you have to look at yourself and be honest and brutally honest with yourself. And you need to ask yourself these kinds of questions. Do you believe people are hardwired? Or do you believe people are shaped by their environments? Do you believe that those two are an either or? Or do you believe that it's a both and? And more importantly, do you believe people have the ability to choose to overcome either bad genetics or bad environment or both? And do you have a simple method that helps you understand other people's personalities? That's where I shared Wilson Learning. That's one that I've liked using down through the years. It's relatively correct, and you shouldn't read too much into those. One more thing, any kind of personality test is a snapshot in time, and a person's personality can change due to traumatic events. And then lastly, think about what kind of people do you like to work with every day at work, and how do I become that kind of person?